Alright, what is up folks? So TGIF, welcome back to my channel. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the cases where a woman do end up dating and marrying a man who makes less money than them. And I noticed that many people brought this up in the comment section. Yes, it does happen. It is extremely rare. And this type of relationship and marriage, they're almost always extremely toxic. And they're pretty much guaranteed to end up in divorce. And I'll tell you guys why. So there's a term that's being used in China for this type of a relationship and marriage. It's called 小白脸. So 小白脸 means small white face, okay? I mentioned before the beauty standard for China, they like the V-shaped face. So, your face has to be small, it has to be trimmed down as you're going down, which I really don't like the V-shaped face thing. I don't know why the Chinese are obsessed with it, but that's their beauty standard. And obviously the white factor, white is the standard of beauty. So in many of these cases, for example, right now I mentioned in China that right now, so universities, women are also outpacing a man. So right now there's a record number of Chinese women that is entering the white-collar workforce. And then many of these women, they're making higher salaries than 80 to 90% of the men. So they're struggling with dating. And also you have to remember, it takes a long time to build up your career. And many of these women, they have to go to, university. They have to go to a postgraduate school, master's, PhD, possibly law school or medical school. So by the time these women become successful, many of them are 30, 32, 34, 36. So many of these women at this age, they're considered to be a leftover woman in China because the top tier high value men that they really want, these men have choices. And these men all end up choosing 20 or 22-year-olds. They don't want women who are past their prime. So a lot of these rich women will end up doing that. They will find a 小白脸. They will find a man that's much younger than them. They'll find this like soft and tender piece of meat. It's like their sexual fantasy. And to all the people saying that, oh, men have all these insane standards. Men only want like the most beautiful woman. They only want nicer tens. Listen, that is BS. Women have 10 times higher standards than men. And for example, you can look up this trend of these Chinese cougars that's in their 30s, okay? First of all, they're not picking average looking men, okay? They're not picking men in their 30s or their 40s. They're only picking like 18 or 20 or 22-year-old guys. And they would never ever pick the average Chinese guy, okay? They only pick guys who look like, for example, Cheng Long or Liu Dehua or Zhang Xueyou or Zhou Renfa. So basically, this is like their 18-year-old virgin fantasy. They want a 20-year-old piece of meat so they can play with in the bedroom. So basically, when you become a 小白脸, you're some rich Chinese cougar's bitch. I've seen many of these relationships, right? And I'll tell you guys why this type of a relationship never lasts, okay? The first thing that happens is that many of these men are choosing, okay, like I said, but they're only choosing extremely young, extremely good looking, the guys who are fit, guys who are very tall, they have a very soft and tender face. These Chinese cougars, they're only choosing the best of the best 20-year-old Chinese guys out there. So, ladies, let me ask you a question. So if you're attracted to this guy, okay, as a 30 or 32-year-old, you don't think there are many other Chinese girls who are 18 or 20 or 22-year-old that's younger than you, that's more fit than you, that's more attractive than you, that they also want these type of guys? See, this is where the problem starts. All of the women are chasing the same very small percentage of men. So in many of these cases, these men will end up cheating in their relationship or marriage, which leads to the breakdown, the destruction of their relationship. And there's also massive factor, I mentioned this before, a guy who is massively successful, let's say he is a lawyer in New York making $300,000 a year, he has no problem of going to a third world country, let's say going to Ecuador, he finds a woman that's selling some mango by the side of the street. That guy has no problem of bringing her back to America. He has no problem of marrying her and having 3 children with her, and that guy has no problem of sharing his house, his cars, and all of his assets with her. A woman cannot do that. Gender lives in the brain. A woman's brain is not biologically wired to provide financially for men. Many of these women will both physically and emotionally abuse their male partners. They'll start publicly shaming them. They'll constantly bring up the fact that, oh, I got a master's, I got a PhD, I went to medical school, I went to law school, I'm a senior consultant at the biggest bank in China, and they will constantly try to shame and cuck their man. They'll say that, oh, look at you, you're so useless, you're a stay-at-home dad, you're not doing anything financially, look at me, I pay all the bills. Women sometimes they will do this subconsciously without thinking about it, and this puts an enormous pressure on the man. And because he's constantly being shamed, he's constantly being abused emotionally and physically. I've seen many of these women, they would date or marry a man that makes less money than them, and in every single cases of these marriages and relationships, okay, the woman at some point during the marriage will begin to viciously physically assault her husband. I've seen this happen again and again and again, because some of these women, once they reach a certain status, they think, the man is a class below them. So they think these men are basically not as good as them. They think that they're worth trash. If you guys don't want to believe me, I bet the US government can actually break down the marriage statistics to show the actual facts. Okay, this is a major contributing factor as to why there's, the divorce rate is so high. For example, let's say if you broke down the marriages by income, I can guarantee you something. For example, let's say if you have a marriage, okay, where the man makes 100% of the money, he's making $200,000 or above, and the woman's a stay-at-home mom, okay, she does not work. The divorce rate for that kind of marriage is probably in the ranges of anywhere between 10 to 20%. However, if you have a situation, let's say, where the man's making $75,000 a year, and let's say the woman's making 60 to 70K a year, where socioeconomically they're on the identical level, okay, this type of marriage probably has a 20 to 30% divorce rate. However, if you flip this trend, let's say if you have a marriage where a woman's making $100,000 a year and her man is making 50 or 60,000, the divorce rate is probably between 60 to 70%, okay? And if you completely flip the script, let's say if you have a marriage where a woman is making $200,000 plus a year and the man's the stay-at-home dad, this type of marriage probably has anywhere between 90 to 95% divorce rate. That is just a biological reality. See, socio and economically, men either date horizontally or down, okay? However, for women, okay, when it comes to marriage and dating, okay, socio and economically, women will only date horizontally and up, okay? That is a universal principle accepted by the heaven and the earth, and you cannot change that. And this is a massive contributing factor as to why we see the breakdown of the nuclear family in our society, because women will only date up. And right now we have record number of women entering the white collar workforce. We have a record number of women in parliament. We have a record number of women in the STEM field. We have a record number of women enrolling in universities, going to masters, going to law school, medical school, getting their PhDs. This means that there are fewer openings and job opportunities for men, and there we have the fall of men. This is the problem. When all of the women are up here and all the men are down here, the women, they cannot find anybody to date, to marry, to procreate. There you have the fall of the nuclear family. This is where all the vicious cycle starts. There's nothing more dangerous for any society to create a bunch of broke, young, involuntarily celibate men, okay? These men will become more prone to misogynistic contents online. They will start to hate women. They will viciously attack women. They will stalk women. They will sexually assault women. They will rape women. And all the women who are now on the top of the pyramid in terms of the income earners, every single one of them ends up dying alone. If you want to start fixing this issue, there needs to be mandatory workplace quotas for men. For example, in universities, it cannot be 60 to 70% women. There needs to be a quota, for example, for 70% of men to get into these universities. This needs to be the same for scholarship offerings, okay? There are tens and thousands of scholarships offered to women at every single school, but there's none for men. And all the white-collar workplaces must have mandatory quotas for men, so men can get it into these high-paying jobs. Because almost every single woman, they want their man to make 100,000, 150,000, 200,000. How are you supposed to find these men that makes these kind of incomes when you keep putting female gender quotas in place that are pushing men out of these high-paying white-collar jobs? Okay, do you not see the conundrum? However, I doubt that this is ever going to happen, because I think this is what the elites wanted. They wanted the destruction of our society and the destruction of the nuclear family. Blow up, blow up.